What's up, everybody? What's up, world? Welcome back to the Win on Purpose podcast. I appreciate you guys for tuning in once again. We are, in the kickoff of 2025. Actually, we just entered into the month of February. So we're already a whole month into the year. Year's going by crazy fast. The world is going crazy fast. The weather's been crazy. Everything's been a little crazy. So I hope that this finds you well. This finds you in a good place mentally, that you're still checking the boxes, taking care of business, trying to be the best person that you can be for yourself and those that you care about, and just handling business, guys, because no matter how crazy life gets and what we experience, we can always take care of ourselves. We can always try to be better than yesterday, and that's really how we win on purpose, all right? So thanks again, guys. So if you will, real quick, if you don't mind, whatever avenue that you're listening to this on, or you're viewing it if you're watching the actual video podcast, if you guys will please give us some good stars, share the episode, share any of the episodes, share the podcast, tell your friends and family about it if they're wanting sound, quality, practical information to help better themselves as a person, to help better their health and the way that they feel, the way that they look, and just become an all-around better person. This is the podcast for all of us, okay? This isn't just for one group of people. This isn't just for the gym, the gym rats, the meatheads, the super hyper, health, exercise focus. This is for mom and dad, grandma and grandpa. This is for everybody. There's nobody that should be left out of this. And even if you don't prioritize health and fitness, you can at least take something from this and start applying it into your life, because this isn't just about, again, I always try to emphasize, this isn't just about the way we look, and it's not even about the way we feel. It's about how responsible we are for ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And that's going to have an effect. That's going to reflect in the way that we look, in the way that we move and operate, but it's also going to show itself in our mood, in our energy, how we treat people, how we look at the world. If we look at it from a pessimistic perspective or an optimistic perspective, that really affects, the impact that we have with people. So that's what the purpose of this podcast is. Obviously, we focus primarily on health and fitness, but it's all about becoming the best version of ourselves so that we can give that to the world and therefore inadvertently make the world a better place, all right? So if you guys don't mind, like I said, sharing it with somebody that you care about, share it with somebody that you know that needs some good sound information, and I would highly appreciate it. So today, I'm actually behind. I've been ahead this whole time, but, January was Januarying, so, got a little bit behind, and today is February 3rd, and so I plan on recording this, editing it, and sharing it today, so we stay on track with our every Monday episode. So that's the plan, but this is my first time recording in like a month, so it's kind of crazy. Time goes by fast and life happens fast, but I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be able to share with you guys and talk with you guys and, just do all that good stuff. So excited to be back. Weather's been beautiful. If you're from this area, it's very rare that we start February in the 80s where you're sweating. I'm literally, if you're watching the video, I'm sitting here sweating because I'm in the gym, my office. I try to keep the sound down, so I keep the air off, fans off, all that. And it is warm here, but we know if you've lived in Oklahoma for more than like 12 hours, the weather's going to change. The cold's going to be back because we haven't really hit our true winter. Oklahoma, usually February, March, and even sometimes into April is when we see some of our coldest, craziest weather. So definitely enjoying. I hope you guys got out this weekend. Hope you guys get out this week while it's still nice. Guys, do not pass opportunities to get outdoors. This is a complete side note. It has nothing to do with the episode, but very, very important. Like, we need to be outside as much as we can, guys. We are not created to be inside buildings, as I say this, recording inside one, but we are not designed to be stuck inside of buildings, inside of four walls with no windows or no fresh air, no sun on our skin. We were not made for that, guys. We were made to be outdoors, to be, as cliche as it sounds, one with nature, okay? Like, that's the way that we're designed to be. And a lot of the health issues we see today, outside of, nutrition and activity level and sleep, I think, just how detached we are from our origins is a big problem that we see, especially when it comes to the mental health aspect with depression and anxiety and stress and things like that. Because if you look at some of the data of, where they've observed people in places like Canada or Alaska or places where it's always cold or maybe it's always rainy or they get very little sunshine, depression rates and anxiety rates typically are quite a bit higher in those areas than places where, like sunny California or Florida, where there's sunshine, people are outdoors, they're moving around. It's so important, guys. So don't pass up those opportunities. It's a great chance to get outside, get some steps in, get some movement in, go play with the kids, go sit at the park, watch the animals, just enjoy the sun on your skin, get some of that natural vitamin D. So many good things, guys. Fresh air, like we should be capitalizing. So take care of your health this week, guys, and get outdoors and enjoy some of this nice weather before it gets rigid cold again. Frigid? Is it rigid or frigid? I think it's frigid cold. Either way, you're picking up what I'm putting down. So let's get to this episode, guys, because this is a good one. Now that we are in February, we're a month into the new year. A lot of people started resolutions, or they just, beginning of the year, fresh start. They wanted to start improving their health. So a lot of people have been at it. I've noticed a lot of people on social media showing transformations already, showing their progress, showing some of the new habits that they've been instilling. And I love that, guys. It's amazing. Definitely keep it up, and then there's always going to be the people who have the best intentions starting out, and for whatever reason, they end up falling off and go back to the same cycle. So if that happens to be you, that doesn't mean you failed, guys. Like, we have 365.4 days each year, like 31 days, 34 days of not doing the things that you committed to originally means nothing compared to that 365, okay? There's plenty of time to start making those changes now, especially when you look at the grand scheme of your life. 1 month compared to 70 years is just a blip. It's just a drop in the bucket, okay? So you are not too late to start making improvements and start bettering yourself and becoming the best version of yourself. So with that being said, at the point that we're at where, a lot of people that are a month and a half into their diet, into their new habits or picking back up these habits, and one question comes to mind a lot of times when it comes to losing weight that I feel needs to be answered, and I want to kind of clear it up for you guys so you have a good gauge on what type of progress you're making, because at the end of the day, there's a big and I could probably do a whole podcast episode, which I might do in the future, but there's a huge difference between losing weight and losing body fat. Now, losing weight can mean losing body fat, but losing body fat is really what the goal should be if we're dealing with, being overweight or obese, not losing weight, okay? So for context of that, you have different types of weight that make up your body, okay? You don't just have body fat, you have internal organs, you have connective tissue, fascia, you have muscle tissue, skeletal muscle tissue, you have your connective tissue like tendons and ligaments. You have veins, arteries. You have fluids in your body, water. You have so many different things that make up your body weight. Okay, so just because we see the scale go down does not mean that we're losing the weight that we want to be losing. And society for so long has focused on losing weight, and you see a big shift coming in recent years, probably the last decade or so, where people have started to focus more on losing body fat rather than just losing weight. And that's beautiful, because like I said, just because the scale's going down doesn't mean you're bettering your health, because if the majority of the weight that you're losing is coming from body fat from muscle tissue, or even a big chunk of what you're losing, or even a small chunk of what you're losing is coming from muscle tissue, and it could be avoided, this is a negative thing, because we know that the more muscle mass someone has, the better quality of life they're going to have, the healthier they are, the better their metabolism is, the better their sleep is going to be, all these different factors that accumulate into a life of good health is just so much higher when we have muscle mass. So that's the last thing that we want to do, is lose muscle mass. We want to be at least keeping our muscle mass, if not adding to it. So it's very important to distinguish between losing body fat and losing body weight whenever we're trying to better our health. Now, it's different if you're like an athlete, say like a wrestler, or, somebody that has to make weight for their competition, and you have 10 pounds to lose and you have to do it in like 2 days. Now, number one, in my opinion, you shouldn't be that far from your competitive weight 2 days out. Okay, that was a mistake in planning to begin with. But if you are in that situation, you can easily go into the sauna with a sweatsuit on, do some cardio, drop a bunch of body water, drop some muscle, drop a little bit of body fat, and dump some glycogen out of your muscle cells and out of your liver, and drop your weight in 10 pounds fairly easy. But did you actually better your health doing that? Absolutely not. In the short term, you made your health worse, but you did that to be competitive in your sport. But when I'm talking to people who are actually wanting to better their health, the only thing we want to see reducing is body fat and inflammation, which does add to body weight. So that leads us to the question of how do we know if we're losing muscle or if we're losing body fat exclusively, okay? So there's a couple of caveats to this conversation that we need to discuss first. Number one is if you're losing a fair amount of body weight, or just a fair amount of body fat, you're probably going to lose some skeletal muscle tissue as well. And that just comes with, losing quite a bit of weight. Say if you have to lose 20 pounds and you lose it, some of that was probably muscle tissue, but some of that's unavoidable. But we can, do a pretty good job at minimizing how much muscle we lose, if not holding all of our muscle, if we strategize things correctly and do things correctly. So that's what the question at the end of the day is how do I know if I'm losing muscle or if I'm losing body fat, okay? And like I said, this is a very important question because we want to constantly be improving our health as we're improving the way that we look and the way that we feel, okay? Just because you feel a little better in the short term does not mean you're actually getting healthy. It sounds weird, but let me kind of give you an example here, okay? This is going to maybe step on some toes, so no offense to anybody, but this is just what it is. So when it comes to the nutrition side of things, you have diets like more of your extreme elimination diets, which would be like veganism, vegetarianism. You have carnivore, you have keto, you have like the low carb Atkins style, even down to like the Mediterranean diet, which is probably better than those far extreme diets. But with those diets, what you usually have happen for a lot of people, or at least some people, is they switch to these diets and then they start feeling better. They start losing weight. They start improving their blood markers. They start lowering inflammation. All these good things are happening, and they contribute all of that to the way that they're eating. And they're like, okay, well, if veganism isn't the best diet for me, how come when I went vegan, I felt so much better and lost weight and had better mental focus and all these good things happen? And how are you going to tell me that the vegan diet isn't the best diet? Same thing with carnivore and keto. People say, I have I can't even speak today. My brain fog has cleared up, and, I've lost weight, and I have more energy and all these good things. Well, when you look at it from the big picture of what's happening, anytime that we reduce body weight in general, you're going to typically see an improvement in a lot of these aspects in the short term, because it's not just what you're doing, it's what you came from. So if you're coming from the standard American diet or the seafood diet of you see food and you eat it no matter what it is, and you're not controlling your calories, you're just kind of just eating based on pleasure, if you will, then switching to anything that eliminates a lot of that junk and eliminates a lot of those excess calories is going to make you feel a lot better and is going to add some health benefits in the short term. But what happens as we continue to do these diets and these strategies? Well, a lot of times with these extreme diets, eventually people start having issues, and people start seeing these deficiencies come up and these different things that go on, these different negative effects that you see publicized. And like I said, in the short term, it's easy to change something drastically and see an effect. But it's not just about the short term, it's about the long term and what's actually better for us. So just because, you're starting to feel better doesn't necessarily mean you're doing the best thing for your health. Doesn't necessarily mean you're getting healthier, okay? So, bringing it back to the actual discussion, we need to know if we're losing muscle tissue or if we're losing body fat tissue because, again, the more muscle we have, typically the healthier we're going to be, all right? So, when it comes to answering this question, like I said, that's one caveat as far as what the effect of your different type of diets can have on you. Sorry, my brain's a little scattered. I've had too much caffeine today. Anyways, this question can be a little hard to answer without having, specifics. So I can't really say just based off you asking me, hey, I've lost 10 pounds, did I lose body fat or muscle tissue? I can't give you that answer without doing some sort of studies on you or going to a lab and actually, trying to decipher where this weight actually came from and knowing what you did to lose that 10 pounds, what that looked like, and all that. So I can't answer that question in the short term. However, there are some things that we can focus on, and I can give you some general recommendations and signs to look for to make sure that you keep as much muscle as possible throughout your fat loss phase, okay? So let's just be clear there. This is very general. This is for educational purposes only, okay? I'm not prescribing anything. I'm not telling you what to do. Just giving you some things to keep in mind to, at least increase the odds that you're losing primarily body fat and not muscle tissue, okay? So number one, and normally when I give a list, I don't like prioritize it in number order, like number one's most important and then down from there. This one I kind of did because I personally feel that each number is a little bit more significant to make sure you're keeping muscle mass and only losing body fat. So people may argue that the order of importance on these different points, it's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to give you some pointers and some things that you can think about. So number one, we want to consider our protein intake, our total daily protein intake. So are we consuming enough adequate protein every day? It doesn't matter how hard or frequently you train. If you are not consuming adequate protein daily, you will not provide your body with the raw material to repair muscle fibers, and therefore you cause an increase in muscle loss. Also, if you're not consuming the necessary amino acid total needed for crucial bodily functions, your body will break down muscle tissue back into amino acids to use for those processes. So I just said a lot there, and I'm actually kind of reading off of my note screen here. If you're watching the video, you see me keep looking to the sides. I'm actually looking at my computer screen and reading some of the notes that I took down. But I'm going to kind of break this down because that was a lot of information I just gave you. So one, are we consuming adequate protein daily? So we know that protein distribution throughout the day doesn't seem to have as much of an effect. Now I can argue based on some really good studies that have been conducted throughout the last at least the last couple decades. One of the scientists that I look towards on this discussion is Dr. Donald Layman. He's an expert when it comes to protein and protein metabolism, all of that. And their lab has shown that, when you start your day with a big dose of protein, at least 30 grams of high quality protein, if not more, then that really sets you up to keep more muscle mass and build more muscle mass than if you didn't do that and you just kind of put protein wherever in your day. So that can be debatable, but overall, it looks like it's more about your total daily protein amount rather than where you're getting that protein in throughout your day, how you're dividing that protein up. So we want to make sure we're getting enough protein. So the government recommendation, at least for now, they should be coming out with new recommendations this year. They update the recommendations every 5 years, the nutritional guidelines. But as of now, they recommend 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So just a little equation, plug in the numbers. However, this appears to be more of like the bare minimum that someone should be consuming to prevent, nutrient deficiencies and, health issues from too little protein. So I wouldn't say that that's optimal. That's more of like a, hey, you better be making sure you're getting at least this much if you want to at least have decent health. But if we're talking about optimization, I recommend a little bit more than that, or, that's at least what I do with myself. So if you're aiming for around, 1 gram per pound of desired body weight, so whatever body weight that you feel that you're going to be the most comfortable in your skin, then that's a really good gauge to make sure that you're getting in enough that you're covering all your needs. Okay. So if you're not consuming adequate protein, then you will not provide your body with the raw building material to repair muscle fibers. So this is very important, guys. That's just one aspect of protein, but that's a big job that it does, is repair muscle tissue damage, but also preserves that muscle tissue that you do have and that you have built. If you're not consuming the necessary amino acid total, then you start to break muscle down back into amino acids. So what does that mean? So protein is really just a source of nutrients that we consume. So the actual nutrients that we're getting in from that protein is called amino acids. So when you break protein down to its simplest form, it's consists of a group of amino acids, in which you have two different groups. You have non-essential and essential. The non-essential amino acids are amino acids that we don't have to consume from our diet, because our body's able to actually create these amino acids itself. Then your essential amino acids, these are ones that we have to consume through our diet in order to get them. And our body has to have these amino acids to function properly. So this is where consuming the animal products comes in, because animals typically have the perfect ratio of amino acids for human beings, because they're also a animal and we are like animals. And so it's their bodies are designed very similar to us when it comes to muscle tissue. Plants aren't the same. Plant nutrients are based on what the plant needs. Animal nutrient compositions are based on what the animal needs. So we want those complete protein sources, because they're going to have all of those essential amino acids that our body needs. So if you do a vegan diet or a vegetarian diet or something that's very low protein, this can be a area of concern, because if you aren't getting those essential amino acids, like for example in veganism and vegetarian diets, it's fairly common to see deficiencies in like B6, B12, and leucine. It's one of the amino acids, one of the essential amino acids. We tend to see deficiencies in these with these groups, because most plant products, even though they have protein, they don't consist of all of the amino acids that our body needs to function. So either you're going to have to eat a wide variety of plant sources all the time, or you're going to have to add supplementation where they're fortified with these nutrients, or you're going to have to consume a ton of plant products in order to get the ratio of these amino acids that we need. So, and these amino acids have other jobs that they do, okay? They're not just for building muscle tissue and keeping muscle tissue. There's lots of jobs that these amino acids are responsible for. So we just want to make sure that when we're getting enough protein per day, that we're getting high quality protein. And again, that's defined by having the essential amino acids that our body has to consume from our environment. So if they have all of those essential amino acids, it's considered as a complete protein source. If they don't, it's considered as an incomplete protein source, okay? So that's number one, your protein intake. Number two is going to be sleep, okay? People highly disregard sleep and its importance, okay? Especially when it comes to building muscle tissue and losing body fat and maintaining muscle tissue. So without adequate sleep, our body will resort to breaking down muscle tissue instead of body fat. And there's actually some studies showing that up to 80% of the body weight loss during a fat loss phase comes from muscle when getting less than 6 hours of sleep on average, okay? So they compared groups of people that got 5 and less hours and groups that got 7 to 8 hours, which is what's recommended. And we see a huge shift in muscle loss with these groups that are getting, on a regular basis, inadequate sleep versus the group that's getting adequate sleep, okay? This is a big deal, guys. Like, And then there's other things that happen when we lack sleep that can interfere with our diet. It can be, our hunger cravings tend to go up, so we tend to crave quick digesting, highly processed foods because it's quick energy for the body. Our willpower goes down, so it makes it much harder to eat healthy and clean. Makes it much easier just to grab what's ever around us. Not even because we're hungry, and not even just because we need the energy, just because our willpower takes a hit whenever we're not rested. Recovery from exercise and activity gets hindered when we don't get adequate sleep. A lot of our immune system takes a big hit when we don't get adequate sleep. So there's a lot of effects of not getting good sleep. But when it comes to the topic at hand of keeping muscle mass while losing body fat, that's a big issue when you can lose up to 80% of the weight that you're losing from muscle mass rather than body fat. So if your sleep is trash and you lose 10 pounds, potentially 8 pounds of that could be muscle tissue. Now your health is way worse. You're going to feel way worse. You're going to look worse. Nothing good is going to come from that because of our sleep. So definitely something to prioritize to cover your grounds. Like I said, that 7 to 8 hours is preferred. Some people can function well off a little bit less. Some people need a little bit more. So there's not an exact answer on anything for anybody, but that 7 to 8 is a pretty good range, especially if you struggle with sleep quality. So maybe you get up several times to use the restroom, or you just kind of toss and turn, or you have trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. Really pushing for those higher ends of hours of time trying to sleep is going to be better, because if you're up and down throughout the night and you're down for 6 hours, maybe you're only getting like 3.5 hours of sleep. But if you're shooting for 8-9 hours, now maybe you're getting like 6.5, 7 hours of sleep. So you're still getting some pretty good, adequate sleep time. So that's the second point. It's super important. Number 3 is going to be your training, okay? So this is going to be your weight training, your resistance training, things that actually put stress on the muscle, damage the muscle, so it has to grow back more muscle tissue to be ready for the next activity, which is how the muscle building process basically works. So are you training consistently throughout the week? So, or are you just showing up on Monday and sometimes you show up Tuesday, but maybe you'll just wait till Thursday and you're just kind of sporadic with your training where you're not building up that consistency? Are you progressively overloading through your training? So are you consistently making things harder, or every time you show up, you're doing 3 sets of 10 on everything, regardless if it's challenging or not? You're not going to keep muscle mass while in a calorie deficit if you're not stressing the muscle and basically giving your body a reason to keep muscle tissue, because muscle tissue is important for our body, but our body doesn't need a whole lot of it for survival's sake. Now, this isn't optimization. This isn't feeling as good as you can and being as healthy as you can. This is just life or death. The body doesn't need a lot of muscle tissue. But with that being said, when we're losing weight, and if we're not doing it where we're promoting keeping muscle, our body will quickly start breaking down muscle tissue, because muscle tissue is actually easier for the body to break down than fat tissue is. And our body kind of protects itself from starvation by trying to keep body fat a little bit longer, because it's a good steady source of energy. So it'll break down some of that excess muscle tissue because it doesn't have to have it to survive. So this is a big problem when it comes to dieting, and we want to make sure that we're promoting progressive overload, or AKA we're just making our training harder each week in some fashion. So it can be more reps, more working sets, more weight, less rest breaks, whatever that may look like, more intensity in your training. And this will help to ensure that you're keeping muscle mass as long as possible, or at least minimizing how much you lose. Are you training with high intensity? So this kind of ties into the progressive overload idea. Are you just showing up to the gym and you're just bouncing from machine to machine, doing a couple sets, just doing a few reps till you feel it a little bit and going about your business? Yes, you're moving your body, which is good, but you're not promoting building muscle or keeping muscle doing that. Again, our training needs to be a little bit harder, because if you, like they say, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. But also, as I was explaining, your body is ready to break down muscle tissue at any point if it needs to. So you have to give your body a reason to keep that extra muscle tissue, or it won't. So, and that comes through our training and our protein intake and also our sleep. And the last one on training, are you training each muscle group at least 2 times per week? So this is more on the optimization side. It's not like you have to train each muscle group 2 times per week, but we do see in studies that training each muscle group at least 2 times per week promotes, very, very good quality muscle growth and retention. So, rather if you're going into the gym twice a week and doing a full body workout twice, which is what a lot of my clients do, and they get fantastic results from that, or you're, increasing the amount of days you're training so you can break down the body, mainly for time's sake or for energy's sake, and breaking it down to where you're still training each muscle group around 2 times per week. If you do that, you're going to have a really good chance of keeping more muscle tissue and losing more body fat than muscle tissue. So the last part on this is diet intensity. Okay, so we covered nutrition. Diet intensity is more specific to the way that you're in a calorie deficit. So are you in too much of a calorie deficit and losing too fast of a rate? Okay, so what that means is when we look at fat loss, we look at typically the rate of loss per week, okay? Because it's kind of hard to gauge the rate per day because you can see so many different weight fluctuations on the scale. But per week, when you average out body weight per week, you can get a pretty good idea of your average rate of loss. So if we're losing weight too fast, we can almost guarantee that we're going to be losing a good amount of muscle tissue, because the body can only burn through so much body fat each week. It's not like if you just starve yourself, you're going to only burn through body fat at a much faster rate. That's not the way the body works. If that was the case, we probably wouldn't even be here as humans because we would have starved out a long time ago. Our body's a lot smarter than that, okay? But if we're losing too fast, we are almost guaranteed to be losing muscle tissue. So a good rule of thumb is you want to aim for at most like 1% of your body weight each week. So if you're 200 pounds, be aiming for no more than around 2 pounds per week of loss. Puts you in a pretty good place to maintain muscle mass if you're following these other points that I said. But if you're losing 3, 4, 5 pounds per week, there's a very good chance that you're losing quality muscle tissue with that. And then that changes based on how much you weigh. So if you're 100 pounds, a pound per week is very aggressive. But that's still within that 1% of your body weight. So we just want to make sure we're not dieting too hard, okay? Because it may sound appealing, it's like, oh, I'm super motivated when I start. I want to lose as fast as I can because I want my goal yesterday. And so, in the very beginning, hunger isn't high, our body's not fighting against our diet. So it's kind of easier to drop calories lower and just eat less because we're motivated, our body's in a good spot. But as the diet continues, as diet fatigue starts kicking in, as exhaustion starts kicking in, as stress, starts elevating, and our hunger cues start intensifying, things like that, it's going to get much more challenging. And then also, you're at a higher rate for losing more muscle tissue. But not just that, you're at a higher rate of backsliding and of binging and things like that because you're putting your body in a state of fight or flight survival because it thinks that you're starving. It doesn't understand that you're dieting to try to lose weight and get healthier. It just knows if it's losing body tissue too fast, there's a good chance if we're to keep this up that we're going to starve to death and die. So your body's going to want to try to fight against that. So just make sure you're not losing too fast. Like I said, that 1% per week should put you in a really good place. Are you eating enough to fuel hard training? So this is one problem I see. Now, before I even really touch on this point, I'm going to start by saying the whole starvation mode idea is a complete myth. It's been proven wrong so many times. Does not exist. If you don't believe me, just don't eat for like a month and tell me that you're still the same body weight or that you gain body fat. It's not possible, guys. Your body cannot create energy and create substance out of nothing to put more body fat on you. So, you can see metabolism down. You regulate a little bit through the dieting process, which it will bounce back once you're out of your diet for however long needed. but you're not going to see your metabolism just drop off and be broken, okay? Broken metabolism is not real, and I hope that people don't still believe that, but if you do, now you know that's false. But with that being said, we have to always keep an account of fatigue that's built up through the dieting and exercise process. Exercise creates physical fatigue. Dieting creates physical and mental fatigue. Well, both of them create physical and mental fatigue. And this will affect how dieting affects your body and if you're going to be losing muscle mass or body fat. So if we're under eating, again, it ties into that first one of being in too aggressive of a diet, and we start tapping into that muscle tissue. But also, if we're not fueling our body enough and we're dieting too hard, we're probably going to have lower energy, which therefore is going to affect our performance in the gym to where we can't push as hard, where we can't get as many reps, where we can't progressively overload our training as we talked about before. And so we're not actually getting better. We're not pushing ourselves because we don't have the energy to do so. And so we're at a much higher risk of losing muscle tissue rather than just body fat. So make sure that you're eating enough to train, to fuel your training and to fuel your lifestyle. So if you're super active, you work like a physical construction job and then you go train at the gym afterwards and then you're busy on the weekends, you're going to need quite a bit more nutrients and quite a bit more calories than someone who's sedentary and all they do is go to the gym a few times a week and then they sit around the rest of the time. So you got to keep these things in mind if you want to keep as much muscle as you can. And the last part on that is if you have less body fat to lose, you are at a higher probability of losing muscle, especially with an aggressive calorie deficit, okay? So for people that are obese, morbid obesity, they have so much mass, so much body fat mass that the body doesn't really need to take from muscle tissue because it has such a high supply of stored energy in the form of adipose tissue, body fat, that it's a little bit more comfortable from pulling from the body fat primarily. But as we get leaner and leaner, or say maybe you have like 5 or 10 pounds to lose, you're at a higher chance of losing muscle tissue because your body has less resources to pull off of you while still keeping you alive. So if your body fat's super low, the body's like, well, I don't want to keep losing body fat for energy and keep utilizing body fat for energy because if I do that, we're already so low, we're going to die pretty soon. So we need to take some of this excess muscle tissue and just slowly take that body fat because we really don't want to risk death. So you tend to see this a lot more regularly with, physique competitors like bodybuilders, things like that, where they're super duper lean, beyond what the average person is, but yet they have to get quite a bit leaner than that to where you're like that exotic lean where you can see like every vein and muscle fiber and everything in their body. That's a whole different level. And at that point, you're probably going to lose some muscle mass during that last dieting process up until showtime. So you can kind of try to mitigate some of that, but some of it you just can't. Now, if you're an enhanced athlete, you are taking substances that help prevent that even more. But as a natural athlete, you're probably going to lose some muscle tissue there towards the end. And that's just the cost of being competitive. But if you're at a higher body weight, your body has, like I said, so much energy that it can take from and never really needs to pull from your muscle tissue until you get lean enough, or if you're just dieting extremely hard. So all these kind of tie into each other as you see, okay? So we have 4 points that you can really focus on to not necessarily determine if you're losing primarily body fat or if you're losing muscle tissue, but 4 things that you can focus on to at least promote as much muscle retention as possible and as much body fat burn as possible in a healthy range, okay? So keep things simple, guys. You don't have to get super crazy with it. You don't have to super stress out over this because at the end of the day, say you're somebody that's been training for quite some time, you've built quite a bit of muscle, and you've just got a good amount of fat on top of it. Well, as you lose that body fat, even if you happen to lose some muscle, because you're leaner, because the muscle's closer to the skin, it's going to push against the skin more. It has less of that, subcutaneous fat, that fat that's under the skin, covering it. So you're actually going to look bigger as you get leaner, even if you're losing some muscle tissue. So don't let that be a concern of, oh, well, I don't want to diet. I don't want to get to a healthy body fat range. I don't want to get leaner or whatever because I'm afraid I'm going to lose muscle tissue. Like, if you do it right, you'll still lose a small amount. But like I said, there's that illusion factor of the leaner that you are, the bigger that you look. So don't let that be a concern if your goal is to get leaner. If you focus on these 4 things, you're going to put yourself in the best position to keep as much of that muscle mass as possible. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We would love to work with you if you guys need help with any of this. We do online coaching. We do in-person training at our private facility here in Moore, Oklahoma. So if you're in the area or if you're not, we can do online coaching where we help you formulate your diet plan. We help you formulate your exercise. We make sure we stay on top of your progression so that you are performing progressive overload. You're constantly getting better and better each week, that we're not losing too fast or we're not losing too slow, and that we're doing all the things that it takes to be a healthier person at the end. Because a lot of people will lose weight, especially with these GLP-1 drugs or like Ozempic, Mounjaro, those drugs. People are losing massive amounts of weight, but they're not always ending up healthier at the end. They just become a less healthier, skinnier version of themselves, and that shouldn't be what our goal is. Our goal should be to have the best health and to feel our best and look our best and have high energy and function properly and be strong and fit and active and all these good things. That's what we should be after, not just becoming smaller. So we just want to make sure that we're prioritizing the things that matter most. And, there's going to be, there's so much information out there. People saying, oh, well, you have to do this, you have to do that. If you're not taking these supplements, then this is going to happen. There's so much stuff out there, guys, that is not important. And sometimes it's just flat out lies and really good marketing. And it's just not important, guys. If you focus on the main things, eating right, getting good sleep, training hard and effectively and smart, and minimizing stress. Okay, that's one that we didn't touch on here, but minimizing your stress and making sure that you're not over dieting or dieting too hard or for too long of a period, then you're going to cover all your needs and you're going to feel your best and look your best. Okay, so if you guys need anything, feel free to reach out. I'm always up for questions. So if you guys have a question and you're just like, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, what should I do, or what would you do, or what do you think? Feel free to reach out on social media, Coach Adam Kelly on Facebook and Instagram. Also the YouTube channel, the Win on Purpose podcast YouTube channel. We also have the website, www.transformedhealthcoach.com. You can reach out there. Lots of different ways, guys. Feel free to reach out with your questions. We'd love to help you guys out because that's what this is all about. Spreading sound, good information, helping as many people as we can to win on purpose. So with all that being said, guys, whatever you do today, make sure you do something good for yourself, something good for your health, something good for those you care about, and whatever you do, make sure you win on purpose. Talk at you next time.